Hey guys, so this is going to be a very different kind of video. I've had a lot of reservations about even doing it, but I've had a long drive. I actually was driving up to a doctor's appointment, I have some time to kill, and the whole drive, I've been looping on something I've been looping on for a while. Now, a couple things before I speak on this. So yes, I know there's no video. It's meant to be that way. I'm in my car. This actually doesn't feel appropriate to have my face on camera, and I don't really have the time or know how to impose a picture for the entire video. So there's not going to be any video. It's just audio. Also, disclaimer, this is going to be about me speaking on a racial memory of mine. So if you are easily triggered right now, which a lot of people are, so if you're easily triggered right now, or if you're in a really high vibe mood, you might not want to listen to this right now. So let me preface this with, some of you know that I did a podcast episode a couple days ago on my friend Mila's podcast, the Vagrant Gimp. Shout out to Mila. I'm going to link her podcast below for you guys if you're curious. She's a really, really awesome comedian and an amazing psychic. So she talks about woo stuff and other relevant things that are going on in the world. So check her out. So I did this podcast episode a couple days with her, and it's always fun to do a podcast episode with friends. It's always a good time. And it turned out to be a really good episode, I think. And I was really happy that she invited me to do this episode because it was for her Black Voices series in light of things that are going on. Now, a lot of you also know that the last week and a half, well, not a lot of you know, but some of you know, it's been a week for me of processing some things that have come to the surface and things that have been some of my wounds that have been really dug open from a lot of the attacks and stuff I've been experiencing on YouTube about stuff that's going on and people's opinions on what I should and shouldn't say. Whatever. Sorry, my voice is my voice. I'm gonna use it however the hell I feel like. So anyway, moving forward. So I've been processing these wounds of my own racial experiences, and she invites me to do this episode, and I was excited to do it. It was really good. I think it really helped me. And after the episode, I realized there were a lot of memories that I was keeping suppressed, that I wasn't allowing myself to think about. And for good reason. I mean, let's be real, for those in that boat who know what that feels like, if we allowed ourselves to think about all those things, we wouldn't get a whole lot done, right? We wouldn't be able to have a lot of joy. We wouldn't be able to function all that well. We'd have a lot more going on in our mental space that's not exactly healthy, right? So I just realized how much of my own experience I was suppressing in order to function. And so I find myself looping on some memories and also letting some things go, which is healthy. There's one memory in particular I can't stop looping on. And I hate looping. None of us like looping. It makes you feel crazy. It makes you feel like, oh my God, I can't do anything else. I can't think. I can't function. And so I've been trying my hardest to not do that. I've been trying my hardest to process it, and I can't seem to process it, and I can't seem to release it. So the whole reason I'm doing this video is in hopes that by speaking on it, I can get it out of my head. And I won't loop on it anymore. The whole drive up here, I just kept looping on it. And it's oh my God, I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of this. This is so draining. So I'm just going to talk about it. So this memory that I've suppressed. I was in my early 20s, and I was driving home from work. At the time, I worked in Santa Monica. For those who are not familiar with Los Angeles, or have never been to Los Angeles, Santa Monica is a very predominantly white, wealthy area. Mostly higher class live there because it's incredibly expensive. But a lot of people actually work there, even though most people do not live in the heart of LA or LA proper. Just a typical thing of Los Angeles. But anyway, so I actually left work early that day. I think I left at 2:30 or 3. So it was fairly early. I was trying to beat traffic like every other Los Angelino. And I think it was a Friday, actually, which is why I was able to do that. Anyway, not important. So when I drive home, I have all these different like side streets and side routes. Again, typical Los Angelino thing. And I'm driving through a residential area because the main drag is always too trafficy anyway, trying to like make up time. And at the time, the car I had, I was having this like tire problem where I was like losing traction fairly often. And I was making a turn on a street and I lost traction. And so I swerved and I just had this sinking feeling. And I saw a cop car like right there. And I was like, fuck. I was like, I knew there was no way I wasn't getting pulled over. I knew that. So, you know, the siren thing. I can't do the sound. I was going to try, but I was like, I don't really know how to make that sound. Like, whoop, whoop. I don't know how to do it. Anyway, not appropriate. As you can tell, I'm trying to like put a lot of lightness in here before we get to the heavy stuff. So I get pulled over and I knew it was going to be bad because they both got out of the car. So both these cops get out of the car, white men, you know, very typical, like, white male cops, as you imagine, like, in the movies and stuff. Bald, like, very, like, tough guy looking, right? And they start approaching the vehicle, and they both got on either side of the car. And that's how I knew it was going to be bad. Because I've been pulled over before, and it's usually an unpleasant experience, and anybody who is not white or of color, whatever label you want to use for yourself. I'm so sick of these labels, I can't even tell you. It's so old paradigm, but whatever. So this story goes to the old paradigm, so I guess I have to use these labels. But whatever label you want to put on yourself, you've had these experiences, like, you know what it feels like, and you know the kind of things that are said, things that are not handled appropriately. It's not too often that both cops will get out of the vehicle in that kind of a manner. And I feel like that's probably a tactic of theirs to implement that sense of control, that sense of power over you, especially if they feel someone's dangerous. So I knew it was going to be bad. And they approach the vehicle, and right out of the gate, they just start yelling at me. They just start screaming at me. No, I pulled you over. No, what's your, give me your license, registration, none of that. It's a lot of just berating and harassing me. And they were saying all kinds of different things. And it's interesting, too, going back to this memory, because I think even in that time, because I had so much anxiety, I have a lot of anxiety around police officers because of my racial experiences. But I had so much anxiety at the time of, just stay calm, that I think I was actually already, blocking out some of the things they were saying because I just had that much fear. And, saying things like, how drunk are you? Are you fucking stupid? How could you be driving like that? Just all kinds of things. It was bad. And that went on for a while. And then as they're yelling at me, they're starting to ask me questions while they're yelling at me. And stupidly, I attempt to answer, which I've been trained by my family not to. I've been trained by my parents to not, do not say anything to police unless, they're giving you the space to do so, because it can be seen as a threat, and then it can, escalate, right? So I'm trying to explain and answer their questions, and every time I do, it's met with, shut up, we're talking, you're not supposed to be speaking. Usually something along those lines. This continues until finally they ask me for my license and my registration and everything. So I hand them everything. I hand them my license, my registration, my insurance. And in California, I don't know if this is a nation thing, but in California you have to have insurance. And so, I had to give that over. And the first issue was my insurance. The cop that was on my side, the driver's side, asked, whose car is this? Again, a very common thing that a lot of people of color experience. And I said, this is my vehicle, sir. Sorry, this is a personal thing. I hate having to do that when you're talking to a police officer, saying the sir or the ma'am. It's just, it just establishes that sense of power, that power dynamic, but it's almost like I have to. Anyway, it's just part of the programming and training of all of these dynamics in the first place, right? So, and when you're in fear, the programming takes over, which was what was happening. So I tell them it's my car, and he starts yelling at me again, saying, you're fucking lying, this isn't your vehicle. And I said, well, my name's on the registration. And it is. And that's the thing, I think a lot of people who do this, and not just police officers, but people who like to, exert power over others, they say nonsensical things. If you really listen to them, sometimes they'll really say nonsensical things. And I think it's just even if it's illogical, like they'll just say it and scream it to make you feel like they have control over you or to just instill fear, because it's nonsensical, right? The entire time this is going on, I'm thinking to myself, I'm alone, and these are 2 white men, cops, and they can do whatever they want to me. And nobody would stop it. Nobody would help me. I'm like thinking this the entire time. I'm also trying to handle the situation and trying to stay calm. 3 major things of like juggling in my head that's going through all of this. And it puts it in it, and it stills you with a lot of fear. It does. It's hard not to. And I think that most people can attest to that. And I think anybody who says that they're not afraid, I think doesn't want to admit that or is not connected to that part of them because it's traumatic. And there's no judgment for anybody who feels that they aren't. But anyway, moving forward. So now they're accusing me of stealing the vehicle. And I'm thinking to myself, they could unlawfully arrest me. And then what would happen to me? And so he finally stops yelling at me for that. And then he looks at my license. And my license had my home address on it, which was a Van Nuys address. So again, those who are not from Los Angeles, Van Nuys is a predominantly brown neighborhood, predominantly minority demographic, which is kind of interesting. It's actually very mixed. Like, there's a lot of black, a lot of brown. There's also a lot of different Asian populations. You know, like most of the valley, well, not most of the valley. let me correct myself. There are parts of the valley that are like that. LA itself is very segregated by race and culture, and that's not by accident, but that's a whole other video, whole other conversation. But Van Nuys is notoriously black and brown. And I said, yes, I'm from Van Nuys. Oh, that's right. I didn't say that part that he said. This is a hard memory to talk about. But he basically said, oh, you're from Van Nuys. And I said, yes, I am. And he said, well, if we were in Van Nuys, I wouldn't have pulled you over. And what am I supposed to say to that? I'm just looking at him. I'm just looking at him, waiting for the next thing for him to yell at me for, or the next thing for him to say or do. I'm waiting for this experience to escalate or be over, is really what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for that pivot of change in energy. And he said, you can't be driving like that in this neighborhood. And again, there's no response I could say that would be logical to that. And he starts to hand me my things back. And he says, so don't be driving in this neighborhood. So he was making it very clear, like, do not come to the white part of town, even though I work in Santa Monica. But so he hands me my things, and they just walk away. Like, no ticket, no nothing. They just walk away. And they drive off. And I'm sitting there, like, trying to stay calm, trying to, get my wits about myself so I could even, like, drive again. After a while, I'm able to, so I drive home. And at the time, I lived with my parents, and both my parents are very mixy. And again, for anybody who listened to that podcast episode, the first thing I said about my experience is it's confusing and exhausting. And this is one of the things about my experience that's so exhausting, this need to explain all the time to people. It's that's very draining, and it's so repetitive, and it's not necessary. But in the context of things, people are always looking for that kind of explanation. So for those who are still in that paradigm of needing that explanation, I come from very, very mixed lineages from both sides of my family. So both of my parents are black, native, and white. My mom's Mexican. My dad also has some Asian going on, and there's some Jewish in the mix. It doesn't matter, but it just is what it is. And so both my parents are mixy. And my family's been mixed even times when it was very, very uncommon and honestly just dangerous. But anyway, and they're trying to console me. My dad's darker. My mom's a lot lighter. My mom's lighter than me. My dad's about my color. And they're trying to console me, trying to make me feel better about something that, how can you make anyone feel better about that? And all of a sudden, my parents get in this argument. And this is something that I think is so fascinating, because it's so amazing how fear can really spread like a toxic cloud and spark these negative, distorted energies and emotions. And so they were getting into this argument about racial experiences, particularly with police, and how different it is for people like my dad and myself versus my mom. And my mom's experienced all kinds of racism herself and discrimination and whatnot, but they got into this argument about how there is a difference when it comes to police, and it doesn't matter, but it was just fascinating that this whole experience that happened to me sparked that kind of energy within them, you know? So basically, so that's just the memory. And again, the reason I'm doing this is just in hopes that it will get out of my head and I'll stop looping on it. Like I said, I even had reservations about doing this because I've been looping on this memory for days. And I just want it to stop. So, I don't know if I'll be doing more videos like this. I'm going to say probably not. I'm definitely going to say probably not. You know, that fear really sticks with you. And I think that's why I suppress this memory. I really hadn't thought about this in years. Like, in years, I hadn't allowed myself to think about it. Because that kind of fear doesn't do anything. That kind of fear is not constructive for just living. Like, it's not. So it's weird to feel it again, like to be tapped into that and like what I felt in that moment. Now, it could have been significantly worse. Like, the whole time I was just waiting for it to escalate into something that would have been physically dangerous, or hoping it would just end. I mean, obviously I'm happy it didn't escalate, but there are a lot of people out there where it does. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm done talking about this. But like I said, there probably not going to be any more videos like this. Probably won't be. And I gotta go to the doctor anyway. I gotta go. Yeah. So hopefully the looping stops. But I will see you guys later. And I'll be posting content the next couple of days as well. Just the normal content, the normal readings and stuff like that. But yeah, take care, guys.